All right. So we're here for another Emerging Leaders conversation. And tonight we're joined by Natasha Liriano, class of 2015? 15. Okay. All right. So thank you for doing this. And like we've been saying with all of these, the hope is that, from a quick conversation tonight, one of our fellow alumni that'll see this will get, some type of little nugget of wisdom or inspiration, or just get them to thinking, or at least getting to see, fellow alumni doing well, just in their job, in their industry, and in their life in general. So thank you for joining me. So first and foremost, what we've been asking everyone to do is just give a quick, update of what it is you're doing career-wise, what you've been doing since you graduated, and all that, all that good stuff. So.
Definitely. So first and foremost, thank you for reaching out to me to participate. So since graduating Johnson & Wales, I actually started out as an AmeriCorps Vista while I was pursuing my online master's degree with the online program at JWU. And during that, I was in AmeriCorps Vista with a nonprofit organization called Capital Good Fund, in which I was helping work with individuals in the low-income population, educating them on financial literacy. So credit building, what to look for in their credit report, how to read their credit report, how to make a budget, how to review debt management plans, and things of that nature. And then after that, I actually jumped into recruiting. So recruiting for me is just satisfies like the need to help people, but also challenges myself and help me get where I am today. So a lot of recruiting, I started out with Aerotech. I went into working as a business development with a marketing company in East Providence. And now I work back in recruiting with a nonprofit in Rhode Island that works directly with the state and helping candidates step in. Displaced due to COVID is basically what we call it if you've been laid off because the company closed down, find new job opportunities, and then helping others that are looking for career change, partner with trainings that are offered throughout the state as well.
And what is it about, thank you, and that was, so you've been busy since graduation, but what is it about, recruitment or, just development in general that, kind of drives you, or what is it about recruitment that drew you to this as a career?
So I think one of the biggest things was not having enough preparedness in college of knowing what I wanted to do. So for me, it was mainly like, I'm here, I know I want to get a degree and I want to get something. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Recruiting allows me to, one, have like a challenge, like work towards like, okay, this person's resume, what can I help them with? Or give them feedback on things that they probably never heard, and be that person of impact. A lot of agencies out there don't actually take the time to give feedback. It's just like, oh, this person's not a fit, or don't give resources. So for me, it's literally the impact in recruiting, but the learning that I get as well. Like I learn through my candidates and who I work with. So, hey, this client is looking for this. How do we word it? How do we make it stand out on your resume? Or like the soft skills or the little things that you don't think about to put on your resume, but are important things that like with the proper wording would be that change from like, oh, my resume is going to scan through a system and it's going to skip, to like, wow, now this word is on there and now they're more interested in like getting to know me better and things like that. So it's just being able to give them that help that I personally can say I didn't have until I started this job, and like networking and getting people to help me do that stuff. But it definitely is a teaching moment all at the same component.
And is it mostly, college level students that you're working with, or is it, what kind of candidates are your specialty, or is it kind of across the board?
It's across the board. Sometimes it's very entry-level candidates in which, a lot of college students think that, oh, I have this degree, I'm entitled to this. But what they seem to forget is that it's not about the degree you have, it's the experience connected to it. So sometimes, and that's where I think like those are things that I wish would have prepared me more when I was in college. Like I worked, yes, during my college career, I worked as a pharmacy technician on Federal Hill, right? And yes, I got the customer service skills. I was picking up phone calls. I was getting medical terminology, everything you can think of. But when I was applying to roles using my degree, it was like, oh, you're more entry level, or like, you aren't getting this salary because, you know, XYZ. So it's also being able to work with college students, educating them, preparing them. So maybe you have to take a sacrifice for like 6 months to a year, but after that, that jump, because you just did that and took that sacrifice, it's going to be all worth it. And that's kind of what I experienced with AmeriCorps. But I also get returning candidates. So it's mainly people that have been retired, they're looking to get back in the workforce, or even now with COVID, it's impacted mainly like the hospitality industry. So getting those kind of people, or like the people that work in casinos, or people that have been in companies for 25 years as like a certain role, when their company decided it's time to downsize, and now they're like, I don't know how to do this over again, right? So it's helping those people get back in the job force and just reinstilling the confidence in them, like, hey, this is a barrier, but it isn't your end. So it's just all about like moving forward and how I can help you move forward and how we're going to do it together.
So in this, you know, so you mentioned COVID, which has obviously put such big roadblocks in front of so many people in so many different ways. What's been your experience over the last, you know, so we're now in September, what's been your experience since really March, in terms of, you know, did you get an influx of candidates, or, you know, is everybody kind of scrambling, or what's it been like since the pandemic started?
So I laugh because a lot of people were very comfortable with the unemployment funds coming in. And then when they ran out is when people are like, oh my God, I have to like find a job. But the thing of it at the same time is that they aren't realistic. So, oh, I was getting this amount of unemployment, or their pushback would be like, oh, why would I leave unemployment to take this amount of money? But they forget that unemployment eventually runs out, and the jobs that are available are not going to be available when that happens. So it's keeping in mind that, you know, add experience to your resume. It says a lot more to say that I found a job during COVID and I decided not to just collect unemployment.
Yep.
Than people think, but we've had a lot high influx now more recently since unemployment ended, but we've also had the opportunity to open up a lot more opportunities. There's more coming in working from home, there's training opportunities that are coming in, and a lot more people also. It's the barrier that when we have parents looking for work but they're about to do distance learning, it's that also being thankful that working from home is becoming an option.
Yes.
So it's a little bit, you know, has its pros and
Adjustment. To move on, you know, to kind of some more life related types of things. So you were, when you were on campus, you were a member of Sigma Lambda Upsilon, right? And obviously you're still heavily active, like many are that go through fraternity and sorority life. You're still active, you know, with it. So can you tell us a little bit about, you know, about what that's been like post graduation?
Definitely. So I am a proud hermana of Sigma Lambda Upsilon, Señoritas Latinas Unidas Sorority Incorporated. And after graduating, I actually took on the role as regional director, in which I served on our national leadership team, oversaw our chapters, and like was really the forefront in planning and the execution about what we wanted to do on a national level. Since I stepped down from that role, actually, one of my fellow chapter sisters stepped into that role. She actually pledged for 2017, and she's currently doing it now. So my involvement now is still very involved into the planning, like the support of my undergraduate chapters. Right now we have one person on campus, but she has so much alumni support. She's such a driven and like go-getter kind of person. So my role now is just mainly being a support system and just making sure that she doesn't get burnt out, and reminding her that, like, you know, I'm a resource, I'm here to help you, and just helping her in whatever she needs. So still do a lot of the planning, still do a lot of the fundraising. I currently hold the director of finance. And then a lot of what we're doing right now, we host a week called Raíces Week every year in September. And right now we just finished like wrapping up our gift of reading fundraising, which is our second one we've done during COVID. Since community service, we're not able to actually go in person. We've actually been doing more fundraising and asking people to sponsor a book for students. So the first one we did was at Sophia Academy. It's an all-girls middle school in Providence, and they really focus on women empowerment, uplifting their students, and really giving them a platform and preparing them for life. and I really love it, and I'm a mentor there. So we donated to them the Elizabeth Acevedo book. So they got that right upon graduation. And now we're working with Alfred Lima, which is an elementary school in Providence. One of our sorority sisters, she's the teacher there. So we're actually donating a chapter sister's book to that class. And that would be, we finished that fundraising and we'll be donating it. And then we're working on a few other things for the JWU community as well. But just really trying to find different ways to give back to those in need without having to like have that worry about I can't be in person and I can't get back. So we just try to find alternate ways.
See, this is what's great about, conversations like these, and what we really are trying to showcase through JWU Connects is how, how broad the alumni network really is, and how many different, pots that we really have our hands in terms of community involvement, in terms of building a larger network. So it's nice to hear of alumni that are active in a bunch of different, areas, but that are also taking time to give back to, the JWU community and just, either Providence or New England or whatever campus they may have been a part of. So you had mentioned that you are a mentor. And one of the things that we've been asking folks that have been doing our Emerging Leader series is, qualities that you might look for in a good mentor, or best piece of advice that you may have received from a mentor, or that you might have given as a mentor. So whichever one of those you want to offer, or all of them.
So I'll do it first from like someone mentoring someone else. I think the most important factor is someone who's humble and a listener. What your response, like as a mentor, your role is to be a support system, not to like push your thoughts and like your process on them, but to help them see things from different perspectives. So my mentee is actually, she was a 5th grader last year. We were together, started last year, now she's going into 6th grade. So, it's kind of different. And what we really do is just connect with her. Like, how are things going? If she has like a class that she's struggling in, I'll ask her, is there anything I can help her with? Or like, just think of different things that you wish you would have had when you were in that age, or even stuck in this kind of like pandemic, or someone that you can just go to and just be like, hey, this is what I like to do. I know last year she had like a dance that she was doing and she was very shy. And when I saw her perform it with her friend, I was like, girl, you did amazing. And I wouldn't miss that, because that little thing that she was shy about doing was also her growth. So being able to remember that little kind of stuff, and she plays basketball, so it's like I love seeing that part. When it comes to things that you should look for, it's also someone that is going to be able to give you advice. And when I mean by advice, it's so much like not every advice you get, it's like thing, but it's also someone that's able to be like, hey, I've been there, I understand, and this is what my experience is. Or if I don't have the answer, someone who's going to be honest and say, I'll look into that for you. Or, hey, I'll connect with my resources and I'll get back to you, and try to figure out, or also someone who's going to take the time and do the research if you have a question. I've also served as a mentor for the JWU online students. So if they have any questions or anything like that, like I try to help as best as I can. And my biggest thing for that is just time management. What worked for me? What are ways that I can help you? And then just sharing resources, I think it's key. Like, you want to be someone that's selfless.
Yes. And I always looked at, the mentor-mentee relationship. The mentor, in my opinion, should be an advocate as much as, a resource for everything else. So someone that is willing to act on your behalf if, opportunity presents itself, and if they have, leverage to do so. So that's amazing. In terms of, so you mentioned the types of advice. Can you give me, what is the best advice that you may have been given, or that you may have, given to someone else?
It sounds very, very cliche, but that everything happens for a reason. And as cliche as that sounds and everything like that, and even in the moment when you feel like, you know, I've experienced my own fair of like job losses due to company downsizing or just work environment, but then realizing that there's always a better plan ahead. So maybe at that moment you're like, oh my God, like this happened at XYZ. But when you sit back and you really think and you self-reflect, like, you know, this role ended because my opportunity for growth or where I wanted to go wasn't going to be there. And I knew that one of my losses was I would never quit. So I would never quit. So God knew that in order for me to leave a toxic environment, it was going to need something to force me out in a sense. So that's, you know, I think of it that way. And then if like, always follow your gut. If there's a situation or like a job offer on there and you're very hesitant on it, it's being okay with either asking the questions that you need in order to be more comfortable with your response, or being okay with saying, thank you so much for the opportunity. At this moment, I don't think I'll be accepting. And, you know, your self-worth overall as well.
No, it's interesting. It still doesn't sound cliche to me, you know, everything happens for a reason. Because, and I don't mean to get, you know, biblical, you know, or religious or whatever for
yeah, I was trying to avoid that, but yeah, definitely 100% on God.
At that point, so I'm a Christian and I have a Bible verse that I live by. It's the passage in Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season and a time and place for everything under earth, something to that effect. I really believe that. I think that everything does have, you know, its due season. And I think a lot of folks, especially in the environment that we're in now with COVID and everything else going on, it's a season of change and some issues that we're going to have to go through. But after, you know, all this passes, after the economy improves, when people start, you know, finding some really good jobs and some really good opportunities, it's almost as if you are stepping into your season. That's, you know, that's how I feel. But so I think that it's really good advice and really just, you know, a good kind of mantra to live by. And more folks should kind of keep that in perspective. And lastly, you know, so we talked about advice and you know, things like that you kind of live by. Do you have a favorite, you know, quote or reading or saying or anything along those lines that you kind of live by or go to when you need to?
So when I need to, my biggest go-to is actually, So my go-to is typically everything happens for a reason. But then also it's also, it's kind of hard because it varies. So part of it is also like my go-to is going to my dean and her reminding me like, hey, this is why you do XYZ. Or I'll go back and, you know, my line name and read into like why it was given to me and go through that. And that's like my motivation and what pushes me through. But also my motivation comes from my family. Ultimately, anything I want, I can get and I can do it. If there's a barrier in the way, it's just reminding myself that it's temporary. And then, of course, you know, the excuses are tools of the incompetent. So also remembering like, you know, if I didn't get it done, why didn't I get it done? So there's not like one thing I go to on the days that I'm actually feeling like very stuck or anything like that. I'll listen to podcasts by Harvey, or I'll listen to sermons by T.D. Jakes. Listen to that. I also listen to, what's this guy's name? He talks very loud, Eric something. Do you know who I'm talking about? He goes out and he talks to students, and like he went into real estate. He talks about his life so honestly and everything like that. Let me see the podcast now. Yes, Eric Thomas.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So Eric Thomas is also another one. And the reason is he's very honest, he's very blunt, he's very upfront. And he talks about how it's not so much about where you come from, it's what you do with it. And it's not so much about, oh, you know, what someone else's drive is. It's about what drives you. And that is what's going to push you out of where you currently are. So whenever I do feel that way, that's what I do. I do Steve Harvey in the morning, or I listen to the podcast, and then I'll turn on some Eric Thomas or some TD Jakes, or just literally tune into my circle, because no one knows me better than my circle. And on the days when I feel like I don't have the answers, like my circle's gonna be like, all right, Natasha, take the day, you know, you do have the answers, and this is X, Y, Z, Y. And then after that, I'm like, 100%. So a lot of it, it's more self, it's family, it's my support system, and then it's using just, and I kind of use like the Steve Harvey podcast and TD Jakes and like different quotes and things like that as a message from God speaking to me, because for some reason, whenever I turn these things on, it's like exactly what I needed to hear. Like I was listening to TD Jakes yesterday, and I was literally crying because I was like, wow, like there's a message, and that message came to me at the perfect timing. I think that answers your question.
No, it's funny you should say. I'm a fan of Steve Harvey. His radio show. Everybody back home, my family. I mean, we're all fans of Steve Harvey, and we love listening to the radio show. He's on, I think, from 6 to 10 every day, and he does, you know, everything in between, start to finish, is him, you know, being comedian and all this stuff. But it's right when it starts, he does his morning inspirational, and then at the end of the show, he usually does like leaving on a good note. And those two, if you can get up early enough, or you know, catch him at 10 o'clock, those two, you know, time frames, I find the exact thing you're talking about. Something that he says or something that he mentions seems to be right on time. And that's, I think, what we have to kind of listen and be on the lookout for is, and that's again, what we hope to accomplish with doing this Emerging Leaders conversation series, is that someone will hear something right at the right time that they need to hear it. And on the TD Jakes note, it is a personal like bucket list thing of mine to make it down south to the Potter's house to like see him in person. Obviously not now, given the, you know, pandemic thing, but one day I want to make it, you know, before he, you know, I don't think he's going to retire soon, but if I can make it to see him in person, I really want to do that. But anyway, this has been great. Really appreciate you taking the time. And again, when our fellow alumni see this, hopefully it'll spark some light in them. So thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome, and thank you as well. And then Steve Harvey does still upload his stuff onto a podcast. So he has that on Apple. So if they can't catch it in the morning, you can still catch the piece at the end.
Oh no, see, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah, because I'm not really a morning person like that, so I do podcast. But definitely, and if anyone has any questions or anything like that, I'm more than happy to like connect. If I could be a resource, again, that's also a thing for me. I may not have all the answers, but maybe I can find somebody who does. So 100%. Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
No, that says it all. So hopefully from this, folks will add you to their network. It's all about building the network. So all right. Thank you.